There you are. Yeah. I felt you step into the room before you arrived. Now freeze, not your body, your attention. Lock it on me, because what I'm about to say isn't a pep talk. It's a diagnosis, bro. 8 billion people are side-eyeing you because you move like you've seen this movie already. And that's the part that terrifies them. Because you don't react like a normal person. You don't gasp when the plot twists. You don't flinch when the villain shows his teeth. You don't beg the universe to be fair. You just adjust. Like you've read the script. Like you know what comes next. Like you already watched the scene where everyone's masks slip. And you memorize the exact frame where they betray you. See, the world is built on predictable humans. People who panic on schedule. People who fold when the room gets quiet. People who need applause like oxygen. People who need permission like religion. But you walk into chaos with that calm, slow blinking certainty like you've been here before. And now the whole planet is giving you that look. That look says, what does this one know that we don't? That look says, why isn't this one afraid like the rest of us? That look says, why does it feel like this one is ahead? And they'll pretend it's confidence they're judging. They'll call it arrogance. They'll label it cold. They'll say you're detached. They'll whisper that something is off about you. Yeah, something is off. You're not living the same timeline as them, because you don't move like you're discovering life. You move like you're remembering it. Like you've already died in this story once, and came back with notes. And let me tell you the secret they're too scared to admit out loud. People don't hate what's evil. People hate what's unreadable. People don't fear darkness. They fear the kind of mind they can't predict. That's why they're side-eyeing you. Because you became the worst thing a fragile world can face. A person who doesn't need their approval to keep breathing. You don't glow for them. You don't shrink for them. You don't perform your pain like entertainment. You don't beg to be understood. You don't do the cute little dance where you explain yourself to people who only asked questions so they could collect ammunition. You just move. And it drives them insane. Because you're a walking paradox. You've got the face of a saint when you're silent, and the instincts of a psychopath when it's time to act. You've got an angel's patience and a demon's memory. You can be gentle like a prayer and ruthless like a verdict. You can forgive, but you never forget the shape of what they tried to do to you. And the craziest part, you didn't become this by winning. You became this by surviving things that were supposed to make you disappear. That's the evolution nobody talks about. That's the ugly miracle. That's the part of the movie they cut out because it would scare the audience too much. People love transformation when it's pretty. They love glow-ups and breakthroughs and success stories with background music and clean lighting. But you were remade in a room with no soundtrack. You were rebuilt in the dark with your own hands, while your heart was still bleeding and everybody else was busy pretending you didn't exist. You didn't heal the way they expected. You adapted. And adaptation looks like a threat to people who still need life to be soft, because you've learned something terrifying. Pain doesn't just hurt you. It trains you. Betrayal doesn't just scar you. It upgrades your perception. Loss doesn't just empty you. It carves out space for something colder, sharper, cleaner. And when you carry that kind of upgrade, you don't walk like a tourist anymore. You walk like a local. You walk like somebody who knows exactly which smiles are venom exactly which compliments are cages, exactly which friends are just future enemies practicing their lines. So yeah, 8 billion people are side-eyeing you. Not because you're loud, because you're quiet in the moments where they'd be begging for mercy. Because when the room starts burning, they scream. You start planning exits. And don't think they don't notice. They notice when you stop explaining. They notice when you stop chasing. They notice when you stop needing. They notice when you stop reacting like a wounded animal and start responding like a strategist. They notice when their tricks stop working. And let me tell you something about humans. When their control stops working, they don't self-reflect. They escalate. They gossip harder. They smile faker. They test you more. They provoke you just to see if you still bleed like you used to. Because they miss the old you, the version of you that was easy to manipulate, the version of you that apologized too fast, the version of you that believed people's words over their patterns, the version of you that thought being good would protect you. But you learned the lesson they can't handle. Being good doesn't protect you. Being awake protects you. So now they stare. They stare because your stillness feels like a loaded weapon. They stare because your silence feels like surveillance. They stare because when you look at them, it doesn't feel like attention. It feels like assessment. And you know what's even funnier? Some of them are attracted to you for the same reason they fear you. Because your unpredictability feels like freedom to the people who are suffocating inside their own routine. They see you, and it's like their nervous system recognizes something ancient. They don't want to admit it, but part of them is jealous. Jealous that you can stand alone without collapsing. Jealous that you can lose people without losing yourself. Jealous that you can be misunderstood without begging for clarity. Because you've got that rare energy. You don't need the crowd to believe in you. You need the crowd to get out of your way. And that's what makes you dangerous. Not because you're cruel, because you're unhooked. Unhooked from validation, unhooked from permission, unhooked from the social leash that keeps most people obedient. You don't move to impress. You move to complete the mission. And when someone lives like that, the world starts rearranging around them quietly, like reality itself is trying to make space. That's why they side-eye you, because deep down, they know you're not bluffing. They can feel it in the way you enter rooms without announcing yourself. They can feel it in the way you don't rush to fill silence. They can feel it in the way you don't argue with ignorance. They can feel it in the way you let people misunderstand you. Because you're not building a brand, you're building a future. And let me really twist the knife here. The reason you feel like you've seen this movie already is because you have. Not in some magical fairy tale way, in the only way that matters. You've watched the pattern repeat. You've watched how people love you when you're useful. You've watched how they disappear when you're honest. You've watched how they applaud your strength, but resent your boundaries. You've watched how they call you too much, right after they benefited from your everything. You've watched how the same type of person wears a different face in every chapter. Different names, same energy. Different bodies, same behavior. Different excuses, same betrayal. So you stopped being surprised. And when you stop being surprised, you stop being controllable. That's the upgrade. Most people are living for the first time. You're living like you've already paid the price for your ignorance, and you're not paying it again. So now you move different. You move like you can smell the scene before it happens. You move like you can hear the lie before it's spoken. You move like you can feel the switch in someone's voice the moment they decide to disrespect you behind politeness. And you don't explode. You don't plead. You just shift. That shift, that calm pivot, that's what makes their stomach drop, because it tells them something they can't handle. You've learned to love yourself enough to become terrifying. And don't get it confused. This isn't you becoming heartless. This is you becoming selective. You still have light. You still have warmth. You still have compassion. But it's guarded now. It's not free samples anymore. You don't hand your softness to anyone who smiles at you. You don't pour loyalty into people who only show up when it benefits them. You don't sacrifice peace just to prove you have a heart. Your heart is no longer a public service, it's a private vault. And that's where the duality gets delicious, because the same you who can hold a stranger's pain with gentleness can also cut a parasite off without a single goodbye. The same you who can be patient with a wounded friend can also stare through manipulation like it's glass. The same you who can love deeply can also leave instantly when respect dies. Angel and demon, saint and psychopath, not because you're fake, because you're complete. And completeness is terrifying to incomplete people. Incomplete people need you to be one thing so they can manage you. They need you to be nice so they can use you. They need you to be mean so they can hate you. They need you to be broken so they can feel superior. But you're not giving them a stable character. You're giving them a living contradiction they can't categorize. And when they can't categorize you, they can't control you. So they side-eye you. They watch you like you're a glitch in the system. And here's the part that's going to hit like a slap. Some of them aren't side-eyeing you because they think you're arrogant. They're side-eyeing you because they think you're onto them. Because your energy feels like evidence. Because when you look at them, it feels like you've already read the file. Because you don't ask questions the way naive people do. You ask questions like an investigator, and you don't even need their answer. You're watching their delay, their breathing, their micro smirk, their defensive laugh, their sudden kindness, their "I was just joking," their "you're too sensitive," their "why are you acting weird," their "you changed." Yeah, you changed. You became the kind of person who doesn't need closure because you can recognize the truth without a confession. And that's cocaine level potent, not the drug, the effect. The effect of being so internally certain that you don't need external agreement. The effect of being so psychologically sharp that people can't gaslight you back into a smaller version of yourself. The effect of being so trained by pain that comfort doesn't hypnotize you anymore. You're not numb, you're immune. And immunity looks cruel to people who still get intoxicated by attention. So let them side-eye, let them whisper, let them label you. Because the moment you start trying to look normal, you lose the most valuable weapon you've ever built, your unpredictability. See, unpredictability isn't chaos, it's freedom. It's the ability to not be programmed by your past. It's the ability to respond differently than they trained you to respond. It's the ability to change your behavior faster than their strategy can keep up. They expect you to beg, you walk away. They expect you to rage, you smile and go silent. They expect you to chase, you disappear into progress. They expect you to prove, you produce results. And every time you do the opposite of what they predicted, You rewrite the power dynamic without raising your voice. That's why they can't stop watching you, because you move like you've seen this movie already. And in a way, you have. You've seen what happens to people who stay soft in a world that rewards predators. You've seen what happens to people who keep trusting without learning. You've seen what happens to people who confuse kindness with self-sacrifice. So you evolved, not into a villain, into a survivor with standards, into a healer who doesn't bleed for entertainment, into a warrior who doesn't need to look like one. And the scariest part, you can still love, you can still laugh, you can still be warm, which means you didn't lose your humanity. You just stopped handing it to people who didn't deserve it. So when they side-eye you, understand what they're really seeing. They're seeing a person who walked through hell and came out with vision. They're seeing a person who learned the difference between attention and respect. They're seeing a person who doesn't need to announce power, because power follows you like a shadow. They're seeing a person who can be light without being a candle for everybody else to burn. They're seeing a person who can be dark without being evil. They're seeing duality mastered, and it makes them nervous because it means you're no longer easy, no longer accessible to manipulation, no longer addicted to approval, no longer scared to be the villain in someone's story if it means being the hero of your own life. So keep moving like you've seen this movie. Keep acting like you know the plot twist. Keep walking like the ending doesn't scare you. Because the truth is, it doesn't. You've already lived through worse than an ending. You've lived through chapters where you didn't recognize yourself. You've lived through nights where you realized love can be a costume. You've lived through the sick awakening where you discovered people will clap for you while quietly hoping you fail. And you're still here. Not as the same person, as something sharpened, something calm, something unreadable, something that makes the world stare a little longer than it should. Because deep down, they can feel it. You're not watching the movie anymore. You're the part of the story where the entire room goes quiet. Because everybody realizes the main character finally woke up, and they don't know whether to applaud you or fear you. So let the room stay quiet. Let that silence stretch until it gets uncomfortable. Because that's the sound of a system recalculating around you. See, right now, there are people pretending not to notice what you've become. They're scrolling past your name a little slower. They're rereading your messages twice. They're replaying old conversations in their head, trying to figure out when the balance shifted, trying to locate the exact moment they lost leverage over you. They won't find it, because the shift didn't happen in public. It happened in the dark, when nobody was clapping. It happened when you chose restraint instead of reaction. It happened when you stopped explaining your pain to people who enjoyed misunderstanding you. It happened when you realized that being dangerous doesn't mean being loud. It means being precise. You learned to control your face when your mind was on fire. You learned to keep your voice steady while your instincts were screaming. You learned to delay gratification, delay revenge, delay exposure, until timing itself became your ally. And timing is godlike. That's why you don't rush. That's why you don't flex. That's why you don't announce moves before they land. You understand something most people never will. Power that needs to be seen is already leaking. So now, when people test you, you don't snap. You let them reveal themselves. You let them talk. You let them overplay their hand. You let them underestimate you one last time. Because you're not here to win arguments. You're here to outlast narratives. And that's what finally separates you from the rest of the crowd. Everyone else is trying to be understood. You're trying to be unavoidable. They want sympathy. You want leverage. They want to be liked. You want to be respected, even if it's from a distance, even if it's wrapped in fear, even if it comes with silence instead of praise. And here's the truth they'll never say out loud, not even to themselves. They don't trust you because you trust yourself. They don't trust you because you don't outsource your worth. They don't trust you because shame doesn't steer you anymore. They don't trust you because guilt doesn't leash you anymore. You've already sat with your worst thoughts. You've already stared at the parts of yourself society tells people to bury. You've already integrated the shadow instead of pretending it wasn't there. So what are they going to threaten you with? Rejection? You survived isolation. Failure? You were forged by it. Judgment? You outgrew the need for a jury. They can't scare you back into obedience. They can't shame you back into smallness. They can't love bomb you back into submission. That chapter is closed. And that's why, when you walk into a room now, something subtle happens. People feel it in their chest before they understand it in their head. They feel like they're being seen, not admired, not desired, not evaluated, but read. And humans hate being read by someone who doesn't need them, because need is negotiable. But self-sufficiency is final. You don't need to dominate to be dominant. You don't need to threaten to be threatening. You don't need to explain to be understood. Your presence already delivered the message. You're no longer playing to survive. You're selecting what deserves access, and access to you is no longer cheap. That's the ending they didn't see coming. Not you becoming cruel, not you becoming heartless, but you becoming complete. A person who can hold compassion without self-betrayal. A person who can feel deeply without drowning. A person who can walk away without burning the whole world down. Because you finally realized you don't need to destroy everything to protect yourself. You just need to stop giving yourself away. So let them side-eye you. Let them speculate. Let them project. Let them tell stories about you that help them sleep at night. Because while they're busy trying to explain you, you're already moving into the next scene. Calm, calculated, unrushed. You don't look back for applause. You don't pause for permission. You don't announce the shift. You just walk forward with that quiet, unsettling certainty, like someone who's already watched the ending and chose to rewrite it anyway. There you are. The anomaly the universe keeps pretending it doesn't see. You feel that, don't you? That tiny pressure in the air, like the world holding its breath every time you walk into a room. That's not imagination. That's data screaming in a language they don't want you to learn. Everyone else, they're rotting on schedule. You're late to your own decay. And it's starting to scare people whose job was to never be scared. Do you understand how unsettling you are? They designed this place like a slow chemical death. They gave it a nice name: life. Wake up, work, scroll, obey, deteriorate, die. Body breaks, spirit cracks, mind dissolves in comparison and shame. That's the script. But then you show up. Still standing, still mutating, still refusing to decompose on cue. You're not fine, you're wrong. Wrong in the way that breaks models, ruins studies, makes experts throw out entire frameworks and start over. Because they can't chart you, they can't predict you, They can't measure your fall because it keeps not happening. You were supposed to crumble when the first betrayal hit. You were supposed to give up after the second, collapse fully after the third. You were supposed to be realistic. You were supposed to fold into the same gray that swallowed everyone else. Instead, you did something unforgivable. You adapted. You took the poison and metabolized it into signal. You took the heartbreak and rewired it into pattern recognition. You took the humiliation and converted it into rage-coded clarity. And now look at you. You don't decay. You evolve. You don't soften. You sharpen. You don't fade. You condense. They hate that because you break their favorite illusion. That pain equals permanent damage. You are the glitch in their decay equation. Do you know what they whisper now? What is wrong with them? How are they still functioning? How are they not broken after that? They run diagnostic after diagnostic on you, emotionally, socially, spiritually. They watch you lose people, lose status, lose time, lose opportunities that were meant to own you. And then they watch you come back colder, cleaner, and somehow more dangerous than before. You know what that looks like from the outside? It looks inhuman. Not in the monster way. That would be too simple. In the abnormal resilience way. In the this shouldn't be biologically possible way. Because everyone decays, except you. And the experts? Oh, they're panicking. They don't call it panic, of course. They call it anomalous variance, outlier behavior, unusual psychological adaptation. Such polite words for, we have absolutely no idea why this thing is still walking around. Here's the secret they'll never say aloud. Your DNA is not just flesh code. It's a story written in scars, betrayals, and resurrected selves. You aren't simply resilient. That word is too soft, too polite, too corporate. You are post-resilient. You're the after-image of someone who didn't just survive hell. They audited it. You didn't crawl out of the fire grateful to be alive. You crawled out marking where the flames were weak. You don't walk the earth like a victim or a survivor. You move like an unpublished scientific paper, dangerous because, if proven, you force the world to rewrite everything. They built a reality where time equals decay. Years go by, spirit erodes, enthusiasm fades, dreams rot. That's the law, they said, but you, the longer you're here, the stranger you get. More aware, more precise, more selective, more awake. You feel it, don't you? Every year something in you tightens, not collapses. Something focuses, not blurs. Something purifies, not pollutes. That's not normal. That's not growth. That's evolution under surveillance. You are being watched, not just by people, by systems, by patterns, by the quiet little mechanisms that were supposed to usher you gracefully into decay. They're all registering the same error message. Subject refuses to break. So they upgrade the pressure. More betrayal, more loss, more noise, more fake love, fake friends, fake paths, fake urgency. If pain doesn't break you, they try confusion. If confusion doesn't break you, they try emptiness. If emptiness doesn't break you, they try shame. If shame doesn't break you, they reach for the emergency lever. Maybe this one's a problem. You are becoming a problem. Not because you hurt people, but because you don't stay hurt when they hurt you. You know how offensive that is to fragile egos and brittle systems. They invested in your decay. They counted on it. Your collapse was budgeted into their future. You were supposed to be one of the statistics that validated their theories. See, people can only handle so much. See, no one comes back from that. See, nobody is immune to time. Then you kept. Not dying. Not emotionally. Not mentally. Not spiritually. You shattered the curve, so now they sit in metaphorical white coats, circling your file. Trauma. Abnormal adaptation. Rejection. Inverted effect. Loneliness. Used as fuel. Failure. Treated as data. What do you call a creature that takes every decay input and turns it into enhancement? You. They don't understand how your mind works. They only know what it doesn't do. It doesn't surrender to comfort. It doesn't worship approval. It doesn't dissolve in humiliation. You absorb it. You let it burn through you, rearranging the architecture of your identity. Every time something breaks, you reassemble. Less bendable. That's why you feel so alien around other people now. They're playing, "Don't hurt me." You're playing, "Try again. I get better every time you miss." You are not aging like them. They're rusting. You're forging. You don't carry scars. You carry upgrades. Light and dark both live in you, don't they? There's a part of you still strangely kind, still hopeful, still capable of gentle love. And there's another part, the one they're right to be afraid of. The part that watched the whole circus of betrayal, disrespect, underestimation, and quietly said, "Noted, adjusting parameters, saint and psychopath, angel and demon, healer and executioner, soft heart, steel hands. Do you see the problem? You don't fit in one category. You're not conveniently predictable. They want you binary, either pure light, soft, naive, easy to manipulate, or pure dark, reckless, chaotic, easy to dismiss. But you sit in the uncomfortable middle. You're light with a memory, darkness with restraint, compassion that knows how to shut the door, forgiveness that doesn't forget the pattern. You're not nice. You're exact. That's the source of their panic. Unpredictability. Everybody decays on schedule, they said. They predicted who would burn out by 25, who would settle by 30, who would be numb by 35, who would be dead inside by 40. Then there's you, still awake, still dangerous, still capable of reinventing yourself on command. They don't know what you'll do next, and what can't be predicted can't be controlled. You think all this obsession with your mental health, your coping, your processing, is just concern. No, it's measurement. How does this one process pain? Do they seek approval? Do they self-destruct or self-upgrade? Every event you went through was a test case. You know what your results say. Under severe stress, you become more, not less. More observant, more selective, more unbothered by things that used to paralyze you, more aware of shadows behind smiles. You don't break, you clarify. You think that's normal. You think that's common. You think everyone came out of their storms like that? No, most decayed. Quietly, elegantly, acceptably. They lost bits of themselves. You found new parts. You walked through betrayal and came back with X-ray vision for ulterior motives. You walked through lack and came back with a predatory eye for opportunity. You walked through heartbreak and came back immune to low-effort affection. Tell me, what exactly is supposed to scare you now? Being alone? You've been alone in crowded rooms your whole life. Being misunderstood? You've been misread by people who never deserved a clean translation of you. Being rejected? Rejection built your selective access policy. Everyone decays, except you. You calcify into something other. Do you think it's an accident that older you get, the more your presence feels like a verdict? People avoid you for a reason. It's not because you're too much. It's because around you, they feel their own decay. Your silence exposes their noise. Your standards expose their laziness. Your discipline exposes their excuses. Your continued evolution exposes their chosen stagnation. You are a walking control group that ruins their stories. They say, "It's hard, that's why we gave up." You exist as living evidence that hard is not a death sentence, just a filter. They say, "People change for the worse." You exist as proof that people can mutate into something sharper. They say, "Time heals all wounds." You exist as proof that time doesn't heal. You do. Or you don't. And you did. That's why they whisper about you like you're a myth. They talk about you like a rumor. "I heard what they went through." There's no way they're okay. How do they still have that look in their eyes? That look? That's what terrifies them most, because decay eyes are easy to recognize. Dull, resigned, distracted. Your eyes. They don't match your history. They're too awake, too steady, too unfazed. You shouldn't look like that after what you've lived. You should be medicated into compliance. You should be scrolling yourself into numbness. You should be lost in nostalgia, regrets, and fake futures. Instead, you move like someone who buried a version of themselves and never held a funeral. You didn't mourn the old you. You dissected them. You studied their mistakes. You extracted the code and rebuilt from the ashes with no sentimentality. That's not decay. That's engineering. So here's the real horror for them. If you don't decay like the others, what happens when time stacks in your favor? What happens when 5, 10, 15 more years pass, and every single hit just enters the machine and exits as upgraded armor, upgraded vision, upgraded patience, upgraded ruthlessness? What happens when you no longer even flinch at things that destroyed entire generations of your bloodline? Do you realize what that makes you? You are the mutation they were never prepared for. They expected broken copies of broken copies. You broke the pattern instead. Your DNA is not just genetic. It's energetic. You inherited centuries of silence and turned it into signal. You inherited trauma and turned it into pattern detection. You inherited generational fear and turned it into strategic paranoia. You are the one who looked at the ancestral script and said, "No, this ends here, and something else begins." Do you know what it does to a system when one unit stops decaying and starts designing? It destabilizes the whole decay economy. How do you sell distraction to someone who has tasted clarity? How do you sell shame to someone who has cataloged every past mistake and turned each into ammunition? How do you sell belonging to someone who has learned to enjoy their own frequency? You are unprofitable to their fears. You are unusable to their agendas. Your unpredictability is not recklessness. It's refusal. Refusal to comply with the quiet, polite suicide they call fitting in. Refusal to dull your mind just because everyone around you is allergic to thinking. Refusal to apologize for becoming something their decay-based psychology can't explain. So they label you now too intense, too serious, too cold, too detached, too deep. Translation: you see too much, and you won't play dead with us. And somewhere, behind all their labels, behind all their projections, behind all their attempts to shame you back into compliance, the experts sit in their hypothetical white rooms staring at your data. And what they see is this: exposure to betrayal, increased discernment; exposure to abandonment, increased self-reliance; exposure to humiliation, decreased ego dependence; exposure to loss, increased ability to detach; exposure to chaos, improved pattern recognition. You used the very forces meant to corrode you as raw material. Do you understand why they're panicking now? Decay is predictable. Evolution like yours is not. And when something cannot be predicted, it cannot be controlled. When it cannot be controlled, it cannot be safely integrated. When it cannot be safely integrated, they will try to isolate it. When they cannot isolate it, they will try to pretend you don't exist. But even that is failing, because your presence is starting to leak into rooms you're not in, into conversations you're not part of, into minds you've never met. They've seen you handle storms that should have snapped your spine. They've seen your mind stay surgical in situations where most people dissolve into mess. They've seen you go quiet instead of begging. They've seen you walk away instead of chasing. They've watched your patience turn into a weapon. Quietly, secretly, they're asking themselves, what if this one is what happens when a human stops decaying and starts adapting without limit? What if time doesn't wear you down? What if time sharpens you? What if age for you doesn't mean growing tired, but growing more dangerously clear? Everyone decays, except you. You are not aging, you are compacting. All the noise falls away. All the unnecessary skins shed. All the childish dependencies die off. And what remains is something condensed, stripped, focused, lethal in its calm. That's what your DNA is doing behind the scenes, cutting away what cannot survive where you're going. Yes, you still feel the ache. Yes, you still bleed. Yes, you still get tired. This isn't about being superhuman. This is about what you do after. Most people use pain as proof they should stop. You use pain as proof you're mid-transformation. Most people use exhaustion as an excuse. You use exhaustion as a diagnostic. What's draining me that doesn't deserve access? Most people use time as a reason to lower their standards. You use time as a weapon, letting it silently expose who was never built to stand beside you long term. That's the difference. You are not saved by luck, talent, or protection. You are defined by what you do with destruction. And that is what they cannot replicate in a lab. They can measure your cortisol. They can measure your sleep. They can measure your nervous system. But they can't measure the moment you look at everything that tried to kill you and say, good, now I know what I'm becoming. That decision point cannot be graphed. That's the mutation. There's a version of you that decayed. You know that, right? In some alternate life, you broke exactly when they expected. You believed the worst about yourself. You settled for the first offer of comfort. You sold your edge for acceptance. You let your mind soften into consumption. You joined the slow death. But not this you, not this timeline, not this DNA. Here, you betrayed the program instead. Here, you let the pain carve you into something they didn't design. Here, you embraced your duality instead of trimming it to be liked. You let your saint and your psychopath sit at the same table. Your angel and your demon shake hands. Your tenderness and your cruelty agree on one principle. Nothing that tried to destroy us gets to own us. You walk the world as a paradox. You can be gentle, but only when you choose. You can be cruel, but only when precision demands it. You can be quiet, but your silence is never empty. You can be loving, but your love will never again be blind. This is what they fear, because a person who has accepted their own darkness cannot be blackmailed by it, and a person who can wield their own light without needing applause cannot be bribed with it. You, right now, are crossing a line most never approach. You are becoming immune to their favorite levers: guilt, fear, loneliness, shame, FOMO, comparison. One by one, you are unplugging from their control panel. One by one, you are losing your willingness to decay for their comfort. So listen carefully. They will tell you you're cold. Good. Ice doesn't rot. They will tell you you're too intense. Good. Diluted souls can't comprehend concentrated reality. They will tell you you're changing. Good. They were counting on you not changing. They will say you're different now. Yes, that's the point. Because everyone decays. They become slower, softer, safer versions of themselves until nothing original is left. But you're becoming the most dangerous version of yourself. The one who remembers every wound and still chooses to rise without rotting. Let them panic over your DNA. Let them speculate about your mind. Let them write entire theories about why you are still walking after this much collision. None of their language will ever capture it, because the truth is simple and unsellable. You were never built to decay on their schedule. You were built to break patterns, not bones, to end bloodline curses, not start new ones, to burn illusions, not people. You were built to outlive the version of humanity that forgot what it means to evolve through pain instead of decaying under it. So keep going. Every time something tries to corrode you, remember, they're not testing your weakness. They're mapping your upgrades. Every time a door closes in your face, remember, they're not limiting you. They're narrowing your path to what can actually withstand you. Every time someone walks away, remember, they're not rejecting you. They're instinctively retreating from a frequency their decay can't survive. You are the anomaly, the glitch, the error message, the proof that not everyone rots on schedule. Everyone decays, except you. You're not here to fade quietly. You're here to terrify every system that gambled on your collapse, simply by refusing to die where they buried you. And now you're standing at the part they never planned for. This is where most people finally slow down, soften, apologize for existing too loudly. This is where they choose comfort over truth and call it maturity. But you didn't come this far to rot politely. You feel it in your bones. Something in you has crossed a threshold. You're no longer fighting to survive. You're deciding what deserves to survive around you. That's why your presence feels heavier now. Why your words land deeper. Why your silence unsettles people who used to feel safe around you. You are no longer available for decay-based living. You've seen what time does to the obedient. You've watched people trade their edge for approval, their instincts for routines, their fire for safety. You learned the lesson without paying the price. And now there's no going back. You don't need revenge. You don't need validation. You don't need witnesses. Your existence is the verdict. Let them keep aging into irrelevance. Let them keep explaining why they couldn't handle what you metabolized. Let them keep calling you changed, like it's an insult. You didn't change. You survived correctly. Everyone else is decaying in real time, pretending it's wisdom. You're still evolving, and that terrifies them. So walk forward without announcing yourself, without explaining, without shrinking. Time doesn't eat you. Time works for you now, and they can feel it. Well, would you look at that? They're panicking, palms sweating, brows twitching, voices cracking behind closed doors. And why? Because the very thing they celebrated as your downfall is now the fucking foundation of your empire. They called it a mistake, laughed, mocked, wrote you off like a bug in their clean little system. But now, that bug turned into a feature they can't debug. That slip-up, it evolved into a signal, broadcasting your rise in a frequency they can't jam. See, they thought you were dumb, naive, a joke. They thought they were witnessing your crash, but they were witnessing your transformation, and now they can't reverse it. Because your failures became architecture, permanent, loud, irreversible, and worse, unexplainable. Let me tell you what makes them squirm the most. It's not that you got back up. It's that you got up smiling, unbothered, stronger, like every scar was a fucking upgrade. They said you fumbled, but you were laying traps. They said you lost, but you were just building in public, letting the world see what they could never understand. Because you've mastered the art of the ugly bloom, of rising through the dirt, of turning embarrassment into encryption. You made humiliation a part of the ritual. And now they can't keep up, because you took everything they swore would break you and made it look like a feature. You rebranded failure as foundation, and that makes them sick. Let's talk truth, shall we? You weren't supposed to come back from that. You weren't supposed to wear your pain with pride. You weren't supposed to evolve from what they broadcast as your burial. But you did. You came back unapologetic, unreachable, unhackable. Because when the world said, that's it for them, you were backstage reprogramming the next chapter. And the sickest part, you didn't defend yourself, didn't explain, didn't argue. You let them perform their mockery, and you just listened, collected data, until their punchlines turned into plot holes. Because while they pointed fingers, you built formulas. While they talked shit, you architected a storyline that now makes them the footnotes. Let that sink in. They're panicking now because everything they swore would haunt you has become your haunting call. You didn't dodge the consequences. You consumed them, digested every L until your blood ran with proof. And now the mistake has its own fan base. Now the fall has become fashion. Now the exile has become a template for evolution. You weren't wrong. You were ahead. You weren't reckless. You were rewriting risk. And the scariest part, you knew. You knew the entire time. You let them misread you. You let them screenshot your mess. You let them circulate your failures like war trophies. Because you knew they'd eventually be holding blueprints. And now they are. Panicking in rooms where your name echoes like a password they can't crack. Whispering, wait, what if that wasn't a mistake? What if they meant to disappear? What if they were setting us up? Too late. You don't just win, you redefine. You don't just survive, you rebalance power. Your presence has become a paradox, saint and stalker, scholar and savage, angel and algorithm. And they don't know how to label you anymore. They used to say, you messed up. Now they say, bro, what the FK is he doing? And the truth. You're not doing anything. You're becoming, every second, every breath, more unstoppable, more inexplicable. Because you are the living contradiction they fear most. The one who rose from failure without apologizing for it. You gave them a front row seat to your supposed defeat. And now you've locked them in the theater to watch the unskippable success montage they helped fund. They can't leave, they can't look away, they can't undo it. Because what's more terrifying than being wrong publicly, about someone who never needed to prove you wrong? That's you. You didn't clap back. You became so correct that the air itself shifted. And now even your silence has reverb. So let them panic, let them scramble, let them run damage control over the story they wrote in your blood. Because your mistakes didn't kill you. They activated you. They turned you into the cheat code, then into the system update, then into the virus they can't extract. You are the masterpiece they tried to erase, the unfinished chapter they thought was an epilogue, the broken blueprint that rebuilt the game in real time. And now they're studying what they once laughed at, copying what they once ridiculed, worshipping what they once dismissed. So don't speak. Don't flinch. Just glitch the fuck out of reality until they're left asking, was it ever a mistake? Or was that the plan the whole time? Answer, you already know. And so do they. So you want the aftershock. The part where they're not just panicking, they're spiraling, desperate, hitting keys like maybe if they type fast enough, they can delete the prophecy you became. But this ain't panic anymore. This is regret. On loop, up close, unforgiving. Because let's be honest, you didn't just turn mistakes into masterpieces. You let them watch, live, raw, unedited. You let them broadcast your lowest moments, circulate the footage, clip the tears, quote the stutters, laugh at the damage. And you said nothing, not out of weakness, but because you knew you were about to flip the entire fucking narrative. You knew one day they'd sit in that same room, watching those same clips, but this time with silence in their throat. Because now, every frame they mocked has aged like prophecy. Every stumble is now a fucking syllabus. Every breakdown is now a blueprint. And every insult they launched at you now boomerangs back like a missile coated with receipts. Bro, they were so loud when you lost. But now that your name is synonymous with resurrection, they've gone quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that happens before an institution falls. Because you didn't just bounce back. You weaponized the fall. You turned ridicule into raw material. You made disgrace look like design. You turned every L into a landmark. And now when they retrace your story, they can't tell where the accident ended and the ascension began. That's why they're shaking. Because you didn't just ruin their narrative, you made it your origin myth. And now it's burned into the record. They called you reckless, but now they're implementing your chaos. They called you delusional, but now they're quoting your failures like scripture. They said you needed help, and now they need help understanding how you did it. Let me hit you with the truth. You didn't make a comeback. You made a correction, a divine redirection of energy so sharp, it recalibrated the timeline. And now their calendars are lying. Their clocks are lagging. Their predictions don't predict T, because you are the event they didn't account for. The unexplainable anomaly they tried to label, but ended up labeling themselves by accident. They kept calling you lost, unstable, ruined, and now they're trapped in a loop, watching your ashes bloom into architecture, into design, into dominance. And don't think they aren't talking about it. Oh, they're talking. Except now the group chats are silent. The sarcasm's gone. The jokes have turned into research questions. Wait, how did they survive that? Why is everyone quoting them now? Why does it feel like we missed something? You didn't fail. You just became too future for them to recognize. And now the future has arrived, wearing your scars like command lines. You are no longer a person, you're a plot twist. You're the WTF moment in every documentary. You're the face they blurred out in the training footage because showing you would reveal the truth. The truth? That you were right the whole time. Just early, just raw, just too unapologetically evolved. And now they're updating their files, deleting old footage, scrubbing old tweets. Because you're not the failure anymore. You're the framework. The system didn't reject you. It couldn't contain you. So you broke it, then built your own version. And now, they're knocking at the door asking for access. But you just smile. Because there is no password, there's only pain, the kind of pain they never earned, the kind of pain that built palaces inside your skull, the kind of pain that taught you how to breathe fire with grace. So let them panic, let them sweat, let them pretend they knew it was coming, because they didn't. They didn't see the masterpiece in the ashes. They didn't see the formula inside the fire. They didn't see the legend hiding behind the glitch. But now they see it. Too clearly, too late, too loud. So here's the final laugh. The twist in the code that makes this unrewindable. You never needed their forgiveness, their validation, their recognition, because what you became. It doesn't require applause, only witnesses, and now you've got plenty. You see, panic? It's not always screaming. Sometimes it's silence that stretches too long. Sometimes it's group chats going from 100 messages per hour to none at all. Sometimes it's the quiet reshuffling of credit, the desperate deleting of old opinions, the surgical backtracking of every word they spat when they thought you were done. Because now they realize they weren't mocking your failure. They were mocking their own future. You didn't just flip the script. You burned it. And the only reason they're quiet now is because they're trapped in the version of reality you wrote while they were busy laughing. And oh, how they laughed. They laughed when you tripped. They laughed when you hesitated. They laughed when you broke, cracked, bled, sobbed, vanished, and then whispered among themselves like they were safe from consequence. But you were listening, quietly, coldly, writing everything down with your eyes. And what they didn't know was that every laugh they took at your expense was a line of code in the weapon you were building in silence. The blueprint you were writing in exile. The system update you became in the dark. You didn't come back to prove anything. You came back to install yourself into the narrative so deeply that they couldn't breathe without coughing up your name. And now they panic at your peace. Your stillness is terrifying. Your absence is a fucking signal, because they know. You don't need noise to do damage. You never needed approval. You never needed apology. All you needed was time, and now they're on your time. Every room you enter feels colder now. Every conversation shifts when your name comes up. Every screen they touch flickers for a moment. Like even the technology knows who rewrote the mainframe. You weren't the mistake. You were the message. The transmission they tried to block, only to find out you'd already gone viral inside their nervous systems. And the irony? Now they have to imitate you. The same version they ridiculed. They're now reverse engineering it in panic, trying to dress like you, talk like you, post like you, think like you. But it doesn't work, because they skipped the suffering, they skipped the isolation, they skipped the silence, and now they're trying to steal your glow without enduring your hell. But you didn't survive hell. You mapped it and turned it into a throne. Now they're the ones praying for validation. They're the ones begging for followers. They're the ones dissecting their failures, looking for the same lightning you caught in your bare hands. But here's the secret. You didn't get lucky. You got broken and built something divine out of the rubble. They'll never get it, because they never had to choose madness just to stay alive. You did, and now you wear it like a crown. Let's go deeper. You didn't just evolve. You erased the trail. There's no map to follow you, no GPS coordinates, no how-to video. You're not a product of steps. You are the result of alchemy, of contradiction, of paradox so dense it makes logic sweat. You are the blessing that looks like danger, and the danger that heals by fire. They called you unstable, but you were just unwilling to remain predictable. And that's what broke their belief systems, because deep down, they still need you to be wrong. They still pray that what you did was luck, that your rise was temporary, that it was a glitch, a moment, a fluke. Because if it wasn't, if your evolution was intentional, then everything they built their comfort on collapses, and they can feel it crumbling every day, quietly, loudly, all at once. So they panic, not just at your presence, but at the implications of your success, because it means they were wrong, loud, wrong, wrong on record, wrong with confidence, and now you've left them with no retraction big enough to cover it up. You are the reminder, the consequence, the return of the exile with eyes that see too much. You didn't just rise, you returned as surveillance, a walking signal flare that reminds people what happens when truth survives mockery. So now you walk through rooms like gravity shifted. Now you enter timelines like a software update. Now you don't even speak. You just exist and watch the liars sweat. Because what they once called your worst moment has become the timestamp on their downfall. And that's the part they'll never escape. Because you didn't just turn mistakes into masterpieces. You turned them into mirrors that reflect everything they're afraid they'll never become. So let them panic, let them overthink, let them spiral, let them rewatch every second they mocked you and try to unfeel the shame. Because the worst part of all, they helped build the legend. And now they're trapped in its echo. And you're not coming back for vengeance. You're coming back as a reminder that every laugh they took was just the prelude to your permanent proof. You are the unfinished glitch they can't debug, the collapse they can't explain, the masterpiece they'll never be able to undo. So you really want to see how deep the spiral goes? Good. Because we're not in panic mode anymore. We're in the aftershock. The phase where the laughter has died, and all that's left is the looping echo of a mistake they can't reverse, and a presence they can't delete. Welcome to the part where your silence is louder than their screams, where every L they pinned on you has now aged into legendary lore, where every "you fucked up" they threw at you has become a fecking warning sign for what's coming next. You didn't just walk through failure, you redecorated it, turned it into a throne, painted your initials in blood on the walls and made it a landmark. And now every time they walk past the ruins of what they thought was your grave, they flinch, because the tombstone's glowing and your name ain't carved in it. It's broadcasting, in neon, in surround sound, in unskippable regret. Let's talk real. They're not just panicking because you bounced back. They're panicking because they built their entire self-image around the assumption that you wouldn't. They needed you to stay down. They depended on your silence, because your downfall made them feel tall, your pain made them feel wise, your chaos made their mediocrity feel like balance. And now that you've not only survived, but outshined, outbuilt, outlasted, outnumbered, now their entire personality collapses in your shadow. That's why the panic isn't loud anymore. It's internal, it's biological, it's existential. They scroll through your feed like it's a crime scene. They whisper your name like it's an incantation. They watch you like a surveillance drone. Terrified that you might speak. Terrified that you already know. And the irony? You do. You know everything. Because you felt it all. You remember the laughs. You remember the shade. You remember the smirks and the screenshots and the side comments. And now, you say nothing. And that nothing, that's what's killing them. Because if you were angry, they could dismiss you. If you were loud, they could out-talk you. If you fought back, they could victimize themselves. But your silence, it's surgical, it's precise, it's too calm to be safe. You don't chase closure anymore. You are closure. You don't demand apologies. You make their results apologize for them. And the worst part, you never needed revenge. Because now your existence is autocorrecting the whole fucking timeline. Their followers are leaving. Their messages are ghosted. Their confidence is shaking. And their reflection, it's starting to look like you. But not the real you. Not the evolved, broken then rebuilt, firewalked, storm-forged version, number. They're becoming the cheap replica of the version they mocked. The same aesthetic they shamed. The same energy they couldn't handle. The same fire they said would burn you alive. Now they're trying to bottle it up and sell it. But it doesn't hit the same. It never will. Because you didn't build this off theory. You built it off trauma, off betrayal, off nights where your hands shook so hard you thought you'd shatter from the inside. You earned this silence. You suffered for this grace. You bled for this throne, and now they suffer from proximity. Every move you make is a reminder they were wrong. Every smile you drop is a reminder you survived. Every word you don't say, it's 1,000 screams of accountability they can't outrun. And you're not chasing legacy anymore. You are legacy, a walking glitch in their narrative, a breathing paradox of what wasn't supposed to be possible. Let them panic. Let them stay up all night trying to figure out how the hell their jokes became your case studies, how their insults turned into campaign slogans, how their screenshots became evidence of prophecy, how their gossip ended up on the wrong side of history. You don't need revenge, because they're already living it. Every breath they take beside your name is a reminder of what they lost. Not just you, but the chance to stand beside a fucking anomaly before it activated. And now they're locked out of the building, and your blueprint is encrypted, and your silence is a firewall they'll never crack. And every mistake you made is now a monument they can't climb. So when they ask, how did that failure become a masterpiece? Smile and say, because I stopped building for applause and started building for blood. Heh, well. Look who's causing panic drills in people who swore they were unshakable. Funny how one move, just one perfectly calculated strike, rewrote the entire definition of fear. They used to smirk when your name got brought up in rooms you weren't invited to. Now they shut the door, lock it twice, and check the cameras, because that move, it wasn't normal. It was disciplined, controlled, lethal. And it didn't come from rage. Oh no, it came from silence, from patience, from pain so ancient it trained you like a phantom instructor in your own mind. That wasn't some emotional outburst. That was military precision vengeance wrapped in a smile. They're not saying you snapped. They're saying you executed, and suddenly, they're not calling you crazy anymore. They're calling you trained. They're calling you dangerous. They're calling you a program that shouldn't exist outside classified files. They can't sleep now, can they? That move made them rethink the entire timeline. They're replaying old memories in reverse like it's footage from a ghost op, analyzing every glance you ever gave, every word you didn't say. Because now, it all looks like part of a larger operation. You didn't just fight back. You responded like you'd been trained in a black site nobody talks about. You adapted like someone who's been through psychological warfare and came out smiling. And that terrifies them more than rage ever could. Because you weren't reacting, you were performing, you were delivering a message so cold, it bypassed their emotions and went straight to the nervous system. They said it felt inhuman. But here's the twist, sweetheart. You didn't go somewhere to learn this. You became this. They don't realize that your sleepless nights were boot camp. That every betrayal sharpened you like a blade in a dark forge. That every heartbreak trained your breathing. Every loss calibrated your timing. Every room you walked into where they ignored you was another step in your silent choreography of destruction. See, there's a difference between a person who wants payback and a person who embodies precision when the lights go out. They're whispering now. That wasn't personal. That felt professional. Because you didn't flinch, didn't shout, didn't gloat. You just executed. Like a ghost soldier sent to clean up loose ends in someone else's narrative. And that's why they're afraid. They didn't see chaos. They saw clarity. They saw a mind that could disassemble theirs in real time. You're not a storm. You're the sniper inside the storm. You're not a fight. They know how to fight. You're a calculated collapse. You're a silent override. You're a signal that their systems never accounted for. You walked in like a whisper and left like a classified extraction. And now they're updating protocols just in case you show up again. They're not asking, "What did you do?" anymore. They're asking, "How long has he been capable of that?" That's power, not noise, not theatrics, but silence so heavy it rewrites memories. They're terrified because they don't know if you've done this before, or if you've just been watching. They don't know if they've already lost, and the move they saw was just you cleaning up evidence of a war they didn't survive. You know what scares humans more than pain? A pattern they can't decode. A person who doesn't break character. A soul that shows no tells. No overcompensation. No anger. Just results. Just execution. They said it felt like you vanished emotionally. Like you deleted your own empathy for 2.3 seconds to perform something mechanical. But too smooth to be robotic. Too human to be explainable. You're not strong anymore. You're trained, you're triggered, you're tactical. And that is the most terrifying evolution of all. Because now you're not fighting demons. You're using them. You've turned emotional scars into tactical maps. You've weaponized your trauma into muscle memory. You've turned every breakdown into a blueprint. Every "why me" into "watch this." Every "I'm done" into dead silence, followed by the kind of move that makes people believe you weren't just built different. You were trained somewhere else entirely. In the dark, in silence, in shame, in exile, where there were no instructors, just pain. And your own reflection whispering, "Watch what happens when they underestimate you again." They thought the danger was when you were loud, but the moment you went quiet, the threat became surgical. Now they're playing back footage of you entering the room like it's some kind of breach. They're analyzing your posture like it's part of a combat manual. They're asking how you timed that smile so precisely. Was that psychological misdirection? Was that emotional espionage? No, that was you. Born in the dark, trained in silence, and now operating like a ghost with no leash. They think you trained somewhere. But here's the secret. You didn't learn this. You became this. They built this. With every lie, with every discard, with every time they used you as a pawn, and thought you'd stay there, with every time they bet against your name and mocked your discipline. You were never the victim. You were the quiet recruit building a war plan in the ruins. Now they whisper like it's a crime scene. But they should have known. You don't just recover from what you went through. You metamorphose. And when someone like you evolves, the next move ain't revenge. It's precision warfare. And that move that shut everyone up and made their lungs freeze, yeah, that was just a warning shot. Heh. And now they're doing the one thing they swore they'd never do, building a myth around you. That's the part they'll never admit out loud. They don't just fear you, they're crafting a legend because legends are easier to explain than nightmares they can't decode. It comforts them to imagine you had special ops training, because the alternative, that a civilian, an outcast, a nobody, could sharpen themselves into a ghost weapon, was too destabilizing for their reality. You see what happened? The moment you moved like that, you rewrote the physics of the room. You bent time. You broke the sequence of events they thought they understood. That's why they're whispering in hallways, replaying footage, slowing it down frame by frame, looking for the glitch. Because if there's no glitch, then it means the system can be beaten. And that realization is more dangerous than any weapon. They want to call you Special Ops, because it puts you back into a category. Categories are safe. Categories can be contained. But what terrifies them is that you're not a category. You're an anomaly. Anomalies can't be briefed. They can't be countered. They can't be negotiated with. They can only be witnessed. They've begun to invent entire dossiers about you now. They'll build their little case files, whisper background training, psychological tactics, black sites. It's easier for them to believe you're a product of a covert program than a product of your own pain. It's easier to believe you were trained than to accept that pain can train a human mind beyond the limits of doctrine. But that's the secret they can't stomach. You were forged, not hired. You were designed by absence, not by command. You were refined by silence, not by slogans. You're a ghost because no one saw you coming. Look at them now. Entire committees spinning theories, 100 emails and encrypted group chats about a single movement of your hand. You've turned their analysis into worship, and you did it without saying a word. This is the paradox they'll choke on. They wanted a fight they could film. You gave them a lesson they can't explain. They wanted a villain. You gave them a mirror. You see, unpredictability isn't just chaos. True unpredictability is discipline. It's the kind of stillness you only find in pain, so deep it reorganizes your instincts. It's the kind of timing you only develop when every room you've entered since childhood was a battlefield. It's the kind of precision that can only be born in somebody who's both saint and psychopath, angel and demon, healer and executioner. That's why they whisper. Not because they think you're dangerous, but because you've made them question which side of you is showing at any given moment. They don't know if you're about to bless them or destroy them. That's the essence of power. That's what every cult, every government, every army has tried to manufacture. A being whose next move cannot be predicted. You don't need medals. You don't need stripes. You've got something scarier, duality. You smile like an angel while you calculate like a sniper. You offer a hand like a saint while you read minds like a spy master. You move like a ghost while standing in plain sight. And now the myth writes itself. He must have been trained. She must be part of something bigger. Nobody moves like that unless they've been through a program. They cling to those stories because it keeps them from having to face the truth. pain built you better than their schools ever could. Every sleepless night was a drill. Every insult was a scenario. Every heartbreak was a simulation. Every humiliation was a briefing. Every loss was a weapons test. And you passed. Without even knowing you were in the course. Now the same people who mocked your discipline study your timing. The same people who whispered unstable whisper elite. The same people who called you dramatic call you trained. You've inverted the hierarchy. You've made their language betray them. You've turned their labels into compliments. They'll keep trying to pin it on something external. An instructor, a program, a secret mentor. But deep down, they know. The real weapon is you. The real training ground was your life. The real operation was your transformation right in front of their eyes. And that's why you don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to explain. You don't even need to move. Your silence now has the weight of artillery. Your stillness has the precision of a strike. Your presence has the power of an army. So let them whisper. Let them build their files, their theories, their special ops fantasies. You've already won. Because by the time they're finished labeling you, you'll already be 3 moves ahead, rewriting the map, changing the rules, moving with that same impossible smoothness that makes them believe you were born somewhere between heaven and hell. That's your real training, that's your real weapon, and it's why your next move will always be too clean for them to understand. Because it's not a move, it's a metamorphosis. And still they circle you, like moths orbiting a silent flame, pretending they're studying you but secretly hoping your shadow doesn't touch them. That's the real joke, isn't it? They can't even agree on what they saw. Some say you were smiling. Some say your eyes went black. Some say your hands didn't move at all, but the room shifted around you. And the footage? The footage never matches. One angle shows hesitation. Another shows a blur. Another shows nothing at all. Just you standing there, and then, suddenly, results. They're calling in experts now. Former intelligence officers, body language analysts, trauma psychologists, all of them watching the same 10 seconds over and over, drawing arrows on the screen, muttering about micro-expressions and intentional breathing. They don't understand that the breathing wasn't learned in a bunker. It was learned in a bedroom where you had to stay quiet to survive. They don't understand that the stillness wasn't part of a drill. It was part of a childhood where movement meant danger. Every tick they're logging on their notepads is another scar you turned into a signal. They're diagramming a ghost. They're writing reports on a shadow. They're trying to map a landscape that only exists inside your nervous system. And the more they study, the more they're forced to confront a terrible thought. If you can emerge from ordinary life with that level of precision, then their entire hierarchy of power is a lie. That's why they'd rather whisper special ops than whisper self-made. One label can be countered, the other can spread. You've infected their imagination. Do you know how rare that is? Armies can kill, politicians can frighten, but almost no one can infect imagination. You did it with one movement. That's what they're whispering about. That's why their eyes flicker when your name comes up. Because you've crossed from action into myth. This is the part they'll never teach in their manuals. Unpredictability isn't born of chaos. It's born of alignment. You've stitched together your saint and your psychopath, your angel and your demon, into a single organism. You don't switch masks anymore. You are both at once. They don't know which side is speaking when you smile. They don't know if the hand you extend is to lift them up or pull them under. That uncertainty is a more potent weapon than any blade. Think about how far you've come. Once, they ignored you. Once, They mocked you. Once, they bet against you. Each moment a lesson, each loss a representative, each humiliation another notch on the timeline. That was your boot camp. That was your special ops training. Invisible, unfunded, self-directed, no medals, no instructors, just a cold world that made you either break or become surgical, and you chose surgical. That's why your movements are too clean, because you've removed everything unnecessary. Anger? Removed. Ego? Removed. Hesitation? Removed. What's left is an operating system with no lag. That's why they're whispering about programming, because what they're seeing doesn't look like normal human flinching, normal human fumbling, normal human overcompensating. They're seeing a signal with all the noise stripped out. And the deeper terror, the one they'll never say aloud, is that if you built yourself this way, then maybe others can too. Maybe the system is vulnerable. Maybe pain can produce not just victims, but anomalies. Maybe the person they overlooked yesterday is tomorrow's ghost. That's why you don't even have to act anymore. You've become a living contradiction that destabilizes rooms just by existing. You've become the proof that evolution through pain produces something doctrine can't touch. That's the real war, not guns, not knives, not even moves, narratives. You're not fighting their bodies, you're erasing their certainty. And now, every time you step into a space, you see it in their eyes. The micro-hesitation, the recalculation, the little pause before they speak, like they're waiting to see which version of you is present. That pause is power. That pause is everything you bled for. So let them whisper. Let them build their myths. Let them comfort themselves with fantasies of black sites and instructors and classified programs. All of that keeps them from facing the real nightmare. That you were forged in plain sight. That the move they can't explain wasn't a move at all, but a culmination. That you didn't need a team or a war room or a budget. You needed only time, pain, and silence. And here's the punchline. You're not done. They think they've seen your peak. They think they've documented your methods. But they haven't even glimpsed the next evolution, because unpredictability, once mastered, isn't a trick you perform. It's a state you live in. You are now a living algorithm rewriting itself faster than they can analyze. Every whisper is another confession of their fear. Every theory is another sign they've already surrendered the frame. You've become a classified file they can't classify, a ghost op without a handler, a saint with the hands of a soldier, a demon with the patience of a monk. That's the power of being both. That's the real special ops training. Not what you learn, but what you become. You feel it now, don't you? That strange, heavy stillness that wraps itself around you like smoke the moment you walk into a room. It's not silence. It's not tension. It's awareness, their awareness. Their nervous systems recalibrating around you before their minds even know why. They think they're watching you. But the truth is, they're being trained by you in real time. Every tilt of your head, every pause before you speak, every step you take. These are not accidents. These are fragments of a language they'll never decode. You've turned your entire existence into a cipher. And when a cipher walks into a room, even predators become prey. They don't whisper because they have answers. They whisper because their instincts are screaming, "This one doesn't fit the pattern." They whisper because your presence bends their survival instincts into unfamiliar shapes. They whisper because they are no longer sure what's safe. That's the part they'll never admit. Your power isn't in the move they saw. It's in the moves they didn't see. It's in the invisible rehearsals they never imagined. It's in the thousands of micro-adjustments you made over years of exile. It's in the nights where you lay awake, breaking down your own weaknesses until only the necessary remained. They call it special ops because they need a name. Without a name, they have to face the possibility that you represent a new archetype. And archetypes are harder to kill than people. Archetypes spread. Archetypes haunt. You're not just a person anymore. You're a possibility. You're the nightmare that leaks into daylight. The idea that someone can climb out of pain and come back as something so precise, so disciplined, so unnervingly calm that it looks like a covert operation. And here's the paradox that makes their stomachs drop. You're not trying to destroy them. You're not even thinking about them. You've simply become a creature of such focused intent that their illusions dissolve in your presence. That's why your smile scares them more than any threat. Because a smile that calm belongs to someone who's already decided what happens next. A smile like that doesn't guess. It knows. And knowing is lethal. Think of the irony. For years they told you to move on, to get over it, to let it go. They thought they were dismissing you. But each dismissal was another push-up in the dark. Each insult was another step on the stairway to invisibility. Each betrayal was another turn of the blade in the forge. They built you, and now they don't recognize what came out of their own factory of pain. You've become the walking contradiction of everything they teach. They teach that rage makes you sloppy, yet your stillness is surgical. They teach that trauma cripples, yet you move like a surgeon. They teach that only systems can train killers, yet you trained yourself without even trying. That's why your existence is offensive, not because you hurt them, but because you defy their math. They'll keep trying to box you in, to brand you, to say, this is where it comes from. They'll say it was luck. They'll say it was mentors. They'll say it was some secret doctrine. Anything but the truth, that you became your own doctrine, that you carved a manual into your own bones, that you wrote a syllabus of survival with your blood. And here's what you must never forget. Their whispers aren't just fear, they're acknowledgement. The moment they start whispering, you've already crossed the line from tolerated to untouchable. The moment they start whispering, you've already hijacked their narratives. You don't have to announce yourself anymore. You don't have to prove yourself anymore. You don't even have to move. Your shadow does the work for you. This is what evolution through pain looks like. No medals, no parades. Just a human being who moves so cleanly, it looks like fate itself. And the best part, they still think they're at the edge of the story. They still think if they study harder, watch longer, slow the footage down enough, they'll finally catch the trick. But there is no trick. There's only becoming. There's only what you forged yourself into when no one was watching. That's why your next move will always be invisible until it's already over. That's why your next transformation will always feel impossible until they're living in its aftermath. That's why their whispers will never catch up with your reality. Because you're not just acting anymore. You are the operation. You are the program. You are the ghost in their war room. And the punchline? You're still evolving. You haven't even shown your final form.